Okay, so we're going to now start with our second guest presenter. If everyone wants to take a seat, keep eating, keep enjoying your food. So one thing that's been brought to our attention, we've actually realised we've added an additional workshop line to the schedule. So don't stress, we're not making you do it all again. We're just taking that last line off. So you'll actually finish and get to go home a little bit earlier. So we're going to finish at 2 and then just do the prize draw from there. So you've only got one more workshop to go. You don't have to do it, all again. So I'd now like to welcome our second guest keynote presenter for today. One thing that we've done, had a really good focus on this year is entrepreneurships and really trying to establish that as a legitimate, rewarding career pathway. It's a growing sector. It's certainly going to be where a lot of the jobs of the future and the new jobs are created. It's going to be the future employers. And so, we'll probably see more and more these sort of budding entrepreneurs coming into your office and saying, I want to start up my own business. What do I need to do? What are the skills? Where do I go? And sort of we're taking that sort of responsibility to sort of go out into the sector, get that information and start helping you equip with that advice so that the next, startup success story, you can sort of support them on their journey. So I'd like to welcome Sasha. Some of you are already familiar with Sasha and what he does. I think if you read his bio, it covers everything from career education, mentoring, career transition, industry engagement, sort of a bit of a jack of all trades. But now Sasha's got a real passion for the startup and co-working and entrepreneur space. And has active roles in Startup Adelaide and Co-working South Australia. So Sasha's going to give a bit of an insight to the Adelaide co-working scene and also how youth entrepreneur is going to have a real impact on the future careers and how, again, you can support these sort of budding entrepreneurs that are coming up. So please join me in welcoming Sasha.
Of water first, just in case. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you very much, Michaela, for the invitation to talk to everybody. And look, it's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces and people that I've loved working with and done some amazing things with as well. So it's great to see you all here. So today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship, but just before we do start, whoops, that was quick, there we go. Just want to acknowledge that we're on Ghana land and that we respect the elders and their connection to the land and certainly their culture as well, because that's really important when we're actually presenting on Aboriginal land and especially Ghana land. For those of you who don't know me, and those of you who haven't probably kept up with some of the stuff that I'm doing, my name is Sasha Dragovelic. I'm the founder of Futurepreneurs Launchpad, Entrepreneurial and Socialpreneurs Launchpad, which are entrepreneurial education programs for young people 13 to 25, 13 to 18 and then 19 to 25. And just recently, about 3 weeks ago, I started an amazing $1 million project called Pathfinder, which is actually the gamification of career development into a program similar to the Amazing Race, with a combination of real-world activities and virtual online activities as well. So that may be of interest to some of you guys, and I've got flyers on the registration desk for you if you want to pick up a flyer. And of course, I've got to put in there the 2016 Mentor of the Year for Startup Adelaide. And just today I learnt that two of my mentees here in Adelaide, one being about 19 and the other one about 23, have just been accepted fully paid scholarships into a national business accelerator program with the Foundations for Young Australians, which is just amazing news. Thank you. So today, as Michaela said, we're going to be talking about co-working, and I'm here representing Coworking South Australia, SA, a little bit about entrepreneurship and representing Startup Adelaide, and then I'll talk a little bit about my programs, which are Futurepreneurs, Launchpad and Entrepreneurial, if we get time to do that. So Coworking SA is a newly formed association representing co-working spaces, and if you're not familiar with co-working spaces, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. But they're to represent and to support and to help those co-workers or co-working organisations, and more than just people having a space or a desk in these places, they're looking at the connectivity of those businesses, the collaboration, forming partnerships, and mentoring them and supporting them. So it's, as you can see there, it's one of the biggest per capita, and we have something like 30 co-working spaces in Adelaide, and that's part of Coworking SA. So what is co-working? You may have heard of serviced offices, where people can hire offices for their businesses and their projects. Co-working is really an international movement of people that share services in a facility, which has the usual predicted stuff that you would think of, you know, printing facilities and desks and kitchens and amenities and so forth. But beyond that, it actually provides people with an opportunity to be part of a business community that is encouraging, supporting, and inspiring to help them set up their businesses and change the world. And it includes things like training, incubators and accelerators, and we'll talk a little bit about what they are. About 5 to 10 years ago, you might be aware that it was the bee's knees to work from home. Who's often, put your hand up if you've often sort of said, I wish I could work from home, you know, not have to go into an office, all that sort of stuff. And I think some of us do that. But unfortunately, with that movement of working from home, there was a lot of challenges that came up for people. And some of those challenges, as our friend there sort of aptly points out, working from home, family and friends often don't acknowledge that you're working. So you get a lot of, once you start working from home, you'll get the most invitations you have ever had to lunch, to go out shopping, to go out, you know, on a day off and so forth. Oh, it's okay, you work from home. And that really impacts your productivity, impacts your business, impacts the work that you do. And those who have families, of course, there's children. And trying to work from home with children, I know I've tried. It's challenging is not the word. You just never get stuff done. So that's the beauty of co-working when co-working came about. In Adelaide, we have lots of co-working spaces, and I've only been able to put a few of the logos up there of some of those co-working spaces. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own particular communities. Like, take for example, SAS Place is specifically for women, and they started off with one in Adelaide. Now they've got 3 or 4 places. So it helps mums returning to work to start their businesses or to continue working while they've got children. They have a creche on site, and they have mentorship there as well. Places like Cohab and Little City and Hub are very professional places where you have a lot of professional services delivered from. The church there, St Paul's over on Pulteney Street, and Mache are very creative spaces, so a lot of music and artists and visual artists work out of those places. So they have a different vibe to them. South Start, for example, was known as Majora. Now South Start is a really highly techie kind of place. So you have all the programmers and all the guys that build apps and computer applications and so forth gather in that community. So just by sheer gathering of those diversity of people in those places, it creates a personality. Some of them are very youthful, some of them, you know, have a lot more mature age co-workers. So it's really important that if you are thinking of co-working or people are looking at co-working, that they look at a few places and try them. and then find that co-working space for them, because that's really important when it comes to growing your business or working on your project. There are numerous benefits of co-working, and we've seen it over the years because it's also facilitated the growth of a lot of startups and businesses here in Adelaide. And not only businesses, we have a following now of business people that have established businesses elsewhere, and professionals that work in government, in education, and a range of places that will actually go and spend a day in a co-working space working on a project, on a report, on an idea, and so forth, purely because of that community, and the space is so conducive to productivity, to ideas, to creativities, to innovation. You're surrounded by like-minded people, so everybody's in the same boat, and you can interact with those people, learn from them, you can share ideas. It's very cost-effective. On a casual basis, for as little as $20, you could have a desk in a co-working space for a whole day. For $200 a month, you can have 24/7 access to a desk. And we have a lot of people that, for example, have a full-time job during the day, but they're building their business, they're perhaps working on a project, will go there at night, on weekends, because again, it's that space that helps them be productive and innovative. It's flexible and inspiring, so you can choose a desk, an office, a team office. There's a range of different options that are available for people to be part of these co-working facilities. Certainly if you've never been to one, I highly recommend it, especially as career advisors and educators, because it's a totally different industry and adds a whole opportunity to our young people. Business opportunities are created there, partnerships form, and people do business with each other. You don't have to go far if you need a graphic designer or a lawyer or an accountant or a programmer. It could be one of your colleagues in that co-working facility. So therefore, there's a lot of business opportunities. Sometimes a project might come in or a tender might come in and they might need several skills. So several of these businesses or co-workers will actually form consortiums and partnerships and actually then tender as a group for those kind of jobs as well, which is amazing. And mentoring. There are so many experienced people there. There are experienced people that are brought in, and mentors and advice. We covered conducive to work purely because of the way the space operates. But training and support, there's regular sessions on how to use social media, or how to build a website, or how to make changes. So there's a lot of that stuff that supports business, including things like using online applications for accounting and so forth. And it's a social community. Most of the communities have a wind down Friday, and that's not wind down, that's wine down Friday. So people get together and they know they have shared lunches together, so it continues that community and builds that collegiate sort of relationship with each other. So look, they're just absolutely amazing places. And one of the things I do through Entrepreneurial is actually literally provide a full-day tour and take people behind the scenes in these places, and you can talk to people, hear from entrepreneurs. I do a lot of them for schools, so a lot of the schools in Adelaide have been on those tours, and I think teachers and students alike, their minds are just blown to find out what we can actually do and what our capacity in Adelaide is. And sometimes as Adelaideans, we really don't know just what we're capable here and what is happening here. We have so many international companies that very few people know about. Moving on to Startup Adelaide. Startup Adelaide is the peak body for tech startups in Adelaide. And it was actually, formed by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So people like Chris Hooper and Oren Prunken, who have, their businesses here in Adelaide, saw that there was a gap for supporting entrepreneurs, so therefore Startup Adelaide was formed. And they curate the Startup Adelaide Facebook page, which has over 1,000 members now, And my goodness, you should see the kind of conversation and the kind of stuff that appears on there. You know, you can put up a question and say, look, how do I do this? And, 50 people will provide their insight and their experience on how things are done, or what their advice is, what's worked for them, what hasn't. It's just an incredible community of people that have one thing in their mind and heart, and that is to grow Adelaide business, to grow Adelaide startups, and to make us an economic powerhouse, and get some of the best ideas in Australia, but also the world. They also run something called Startup Weekend, and I've got a couple of slides later on about Startup Weekend, where people can actually build a business in 54 hours. Literally build a business in 54 hours. And Futurepreneurs came out of that as Boss Camp several years ago, and I just couldn't describe the amount of work and the amount of people that sort of come together in a weekend like that to actually create real outcomes very quickly and very rapidly, and everybody just pitches in with their talents and skills. And it's also a voice for startups as well, advocating to government, to community, as an association would do. And they also, every year, they have awards that recognise some of the best startups in Adelaide, the new startups, young upstarts, so, really young entrepreneurs, and we celebrate and we recognise those people that have done enormous work on their businesses as individuals, part of this startup community. I encourage you to go to the Startup Adelaide website and have a look at all the variety of tech startups that are on there and some of the information, because that would be valuable information for you to pass on to young people as well. And if you're really interested in the startup scene and entrepreneurship in Australia, who's in it, what is their gender, what are their ages, what are their challenges, what are their successes and so forth, Startup Muster is the largest survey in Australia of entrepreneurs, and it collates all that data every year, and so we can go through and actually see what's happening in the entrepreneurial industry and in the startup scene as well. So if as a career advisor you want to sort of equip yourself with that information, that's a good site to go to. And of course, Startup Oz is the national peak body for startup and entrepreneurship in Australia, so check that out as well. There's some great reports on there around the industry and the growth of the industry and what's coming out of Australia as well. There are hundreds of startups in Adelaide. Many of these here have gone national and international, and they're grounded here in Adelaide. In fact, I was having a Twitter conversation with the Codex the other day, their CEO, Chris Hooper, and he's determined not to leave Adelaide so that he can create a legacy for our young people in Adelaide and build a business here. Yet he's gone over to the US, to Asia, to Europe, growing his business from here. In fact, if you look at his Facebook page, he's got a tombstone on there, and it reads, this is in the future, that Chris Hooper disrupted and changed the accounting profession forever. That's his goal, is to change that profession. Unity Wi-Fi, another wonderful organisation here in Adelaide that's going national, and they're providing broadband, some of the highest speeds in internet service delivery purely by Wi-Fi here in Adelaide. So again, an innovation here in Adelaide. And there are certainly a lot like HappyCo that have gone overseas. We've got Edufolios, if you haven't come across it as yet, specifically targeted at teachers and educators to help keep record of a lot of your the work that you do. Again, an Adelaide innovation that's gone international, and so forth. So look, there's a lot that we can talk about there. Please jump onto some of those websites and learn about some of the startups and the businesses that we're creating here in Adelaide that have become international. But why Adelaide is the question. And it's a question that we hear a lot because there's so much activity here. And many years ago, there were very few startups, if any. But there are some practical reasons why Adelaide is just an excellent place to start a business, commence a startup, and do business in. And one of the things is the fact that we're actually, both council and the state government is focusing on making Adelaide a city of entrepreneurs. And we're attracting people from all over. So a lot of resources are going into Adelaide to create this centre of innovation, of entrepreneurship, of starting businesses that are international. And some of the reasons behind that is that startups and entrepreneurships create jobs. If you can imagine that a person starting a startup creates a job for themselves first, as they grow, they start employing others. And it's a true employment strategy, because these are new organisations that create new opportunities rather than, as you know, natural attrition. As people retire, we tend to replace them in a lot of industries. This is really creating new industry and new opportunities. It's value for money. It's one of the cheapest places in the world, in Australia, to actually start a business. You don't have to travel far. CBD locations, the services are all here, and even those entrepreneurs that go overseas and set up overseas for a few years, I constantly see them come back to Adelaide to raise their families here. For some reason, they always come back to raise their families here. Just recently, some amazing wins for Adelaide. Techstars, which was based in Boulder in the US, has set up their first Asia Pacific accelerator, defence accelerator in Adelaide. Not Sydney, not Melbourne, not anywhere else, here in Adelaide, and they've just started that program here. And these are some of the guys, Brad Feld and David Cohen wrote the book on startups and co-working and ecosystems, communities, entrepreneurial ecosystems, and they have actually come and set that up here in Adelaide. So we're attracting international people. Of course, everybody's heard the Tesla story with the big battery, and soon they're coming back to look at space exploration from here. And it's not just about the battery. It's not just about SpaceX. Having Elon Musk and Tesla come to South Australia and to Adelaide, there's a lot more to that. The fact that an international entrepreneur and success story like that is coming to Adelaide would certainly provide some information about why Adelaide is a great place to start a startup. And look, we're the world's best test market. Everybody will tell you that. Adelaideans are not pushovers. We don't just buy things because people want to sell them to us. We don't just adopt things because somebody's created it. We want to be convinced. We want to know the information. We want to know the research that's behind it. We want to know what outcomes it's going to be producing for us. So if you can make a business and a startup work in Adelaide, beyond Adelaide it's really easy, because everyone else just seems to adopt stuff, whether it's going to work or not, whereas with us we're very, very cautious and really want to know all the information before we're sold to it. So they're just some of the things of why Adelaide is a great place to commence your startup and start a business. We've mapped the ecosystem here in Adelaide. A gentleman by the name of Paul Daly from Adelaide City Council, who's our entrepreneurial, consultant here in Adelaide and tirelessly works to bring the community together, has mapped it. And I've left a flyer for you, a handout at the registration desk of this map that maps all the education, all the co-working spaces, a range of programs in Adelaide that would be very, very helpful for you. And the one that you've got is actually hot off the press, July 2017, so it's the most up-to-date ecosystem map that's available. So please have a look at that, and then you can use that as a basis to look at a whole bunch of stuff there. All right, entrepreneurial and enterprise skills. We're changing a little bit of pace now from those particular organisations to why entrepreneurial and enterprise skills are becoming very important for young people. Now, I know that a lot of you guys already understand this, and I've seen it. I've worked with schools, and a lot of schools are starting to build this both in curriculum, but also in engaging with the entrepreneurial ecosystem to bring entrepreneurship into your schools and work with entrepreneurs. But I'm going to be sharing with you some of the information that we've come across through our programs and the research that we've done, and hopefully that will add a little bit more, detail to why that is the actual case. And I'm going to start off with a few sad stories and perhaps slightly depressing, because these are the things that drive change. Whenever something goes wrong, that's when we make the changes, don't we? When we see an accident on a particular intersection, we put up traffic lights or roundabouts and so forth. And it's the same with this space. When our unemployment is through the roof, and in some places in South Australia and Australia, it's over 20%, which is just really sad. We've got over 300,000 young people that are unemployed across Australia. So that's one of the drivers. Youth unemployment is really high. What can we do about that? University. I know a lot of you guys provide information and support to young people to go into universities, but the latest figures are that 1 in 7 of our university students drop out in the first year. And a lot of that's not because university is no good or the education is lacking anyway. It's because of the mismatch. They thought that's what they wanted to do, and then they get in there, and then they realise it's not for them. And they do really diplomatic things for mum and dad and people they know, and they do things like defer their studies, or they take a gap year. But behind a lot of that, if you talk to young people individually, it's really a diplomatic approach, not to upset mum and dad or whoever, but what they're saying is, perhaps I'm not really interested in university or that particular pathway that I was taking. So that's an issue there. What about trades and apprenticeships? It is so stubborn, such a stubborn figure, because we're still at around about 50% non-completion rates. Again, it's not about the fact that there are not opportunities out there, and being a plumber or a carpenter or a builder or an electrician, or they're great careers, and some people are just fantastic at them, and we need them. Again, it's about that mismatch. Young people go into that because dad was an electrician, or mum said I should be a plumber, or my uncle said if you want to make money and have a good career, become a builder. So it's that mismatch again, and then they drop out of that as well. But what's the answer? What do we do about that? And I'm no mathematician. Are there any maths teachers in the class? Any background in maths? Are you going to admit to it? No, nobody's going to admit to it. Oh, no, there's a couple. There's a couple here. The unemployed, people looking for work or underemployed, is 9 times that of the available vacancies. How does that go into that? It just doesn't. So forever the government, our programs, great intentions of trying to get people into employment, but there's just not the vacancies out there. So that's another issue that we've got to look at. We've got to create more job opportunities for our young people. We've got to look at new ways of getting them into employment. All right, so that brings us to entrepreneurship. So what is entrepreneurship? You will read all sorts of definitions in dictionaries and online, and people will tell you all sorts of stuff. I've distilled it down to this. If you take the original French word, and I don't know if there's any French background teachers here or anybody from France, but in the end, when you distill it down, it just means have ideas and do ideas. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's your idea or somebody else's ideas. What entrepreneurs do is they do ideas. They put them into action. They do something about it. One of my mentors once said, Sash, do you know where you find the best ideas in the world, the billion-dollar ideas? In the cemetery. Because people take them with them. Entrepreneurs make it happen. They have a go at least. They do ideas. But why are we looking to entrepreneurship to perhaps produce some of these answers around employment, around getting young people engaged in their future? The workforce is not a one size fits all kind of scenario. Not everybody is cut out for the workforce. I'm sure you've heard people saying, I wish I wasn't at work. I don't want to be here. So that's an indicator there. Globalisation. The workforce has become, earth-wide. We can hire people from all over the world, and our young people can do work all over the world from here, from Adelaide. The technology disruption, platforms that we have out there. Virtual assistants are available everywhere. You need something, some graphic design done, you put it up on a website now specifically for that. Somebody in India, in Europe, in America can actually do that for you and email it to you, and you don't have to source that work locally. Virtual assistants, again, huge growing industry where people are working from a co-working space or their home, and they're providing assistance to others as part of their employment and work. And online marketplaces as well is a really big thing. You just put up your jobs and somebody will do it. Airtasker is one of them at the moment. And of course we've got virtual reality and augmented reality coming in as well very rapidly. I've got a organisation I'm working with, Adelaide, who has created a virtual reality program for stroke rehabilitation. So rather than people who have experienced a stroke and pulling in drawers and opening doors and all the rest of it, and being told they have to do 100 of them, but they only do 10 because they can't be bothered. Now they can actually put this gear on and they can do those same exercises in a gamified by playing with some balls or doing some games, and they do more than is actually required, and therefore it expedites their recovery and so forth. Augmented reality. Very soon you'll be driving down the road and all the businesses and their numbers will be appearing on your screen as you drive live. So it will be superimposed over the street. That's happening already. And of course, artificial intelligence. Have you ever wondered when you've been on the internet and then you go onto Facebook and all the ads along the side there seem to know what you've been looking for or searching for or know what you want? That's because there's computer learning behind sitting all of that, learning who you are, what you like, where you go, what you do, and therefore providing those services for you without you even thinking about it. And Forbes is predicting in America very soon that 40 to 50% of jobs will be freelance. Do you reckon our young people are ready to be freelancers, to be able to take charge of their own life, manage their own career, manage their own work? So those are some of the skills that we're looking at. And of course, we do need to, just a bit of caution and a bit of warning there, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. Anecdotally at the moment, we probably see that 30% of young people are very suitable for entrepreneurship and running their own business, and about 70% need to go into the workforce. Not only for themselves, but we need them to go into the workforce because we still need people in the workforce. And again, anecdotally, I think about 5% of our young people, less than 5%, probably choose an entrepreneurial business pathway. And a lot of the time it's because they don't know what they don't know. And it's our responsibility to tell them that, look, you could go to university, you can go to TAFE, you can get an apprenticeship and get a job, but you've also got this option here. You can go to university, you can go to TAFE, you can go and get an apprenticeship, and you can be your own boss. You can create your own business. You could take an idea to commercialisation. In the end, the goal that we have for young people, for all of us, is meaningful and fulfilling employment. It doesn't matter what we want to do, but we want people to, be fulfilled and have meaning in their work. And isn't it wonderful when you get that plumber that just loves doing pipes, or that hospitality person that is just fantastic at their service, or you go into a retail store and they're informed and they're there to serve you and things happen efficiently, You can remember a teacher back in your day, I know I can, that were just amazing at their job. They loved being there. They were always there to mentor and support and provide information, to guide, to encourage. And that's what we want. We want people who are fulfilled in their work and find meaning in it. It doesn't matter how we get there. It could be that we get there straight from education. It could be that we go into the workforce to achieve that sustainable, meaningful, fulfilling workforce. It could be through entrepreneurship and business. Some people get in there through investment. They buy a job, they buy a business. It doesn't matter how we get there. What matters is the outcome, doesn't it? that we get that sustainable, meaningful and fulfilling work. And we, in this room, are part of those people that have the privilege, the honour to actually help young people to do that. How amazing is that? And I know for a fact that each and every one of you have that story of that student or that young person that you talked to at school, you saw them years later, and they came up and said, you know, thank you. You did this, or you did that, or you inspired me. And it's just an amazing feeling, isn't it? Entrepreneurial skills are not an alternative to some of the basics that we need. And you've all heard about employability skills. You've all heard about personal skills or personal attributes, things like communication, teamwork, you name it, reliability, enthusiasm, honesty. Those things are still very important, absolutely important. Entrepreneurial skills are additional skills that our young people need now, right now, and into the future. And they include things like the desire to improve the world. A lot of entrepreneurs are driven by wanting to improve the world, to make it better for everyone. And an example of that is taking something that's available to only a few people and doing something with it and then making it available to everybody. A bit like Henry Ford back in the day. He took the car that was only available to a very few people who could afford it, and he mass-produced it and made it available to everybody. And we all benefit from that today, don't we? So those are the kind of things that entrepreneurs do. Not being afraid to take risks. We're not talking about gambling here. Entrepreneurs don't gamble. Sometimes people think, oh, you know, they take all these risks with people's money and their life and their family. And if you're pouring in $100,000 into a project, you want something to come back from that. So you're not just going to gamble on it. So, but take those risks and say, look, I'm going to have a go and see how it goes. Understanding failure is part of success, because as we fail, it's a learning experience. I'll do this better. And believe me, I've learnt a few things in my life, and I know you guys have as well. And is it really failure, or is it really a learning experience? Some of them are quite tough. Expert in networking, getting to know people and so forth. And the creative skills, of course, things like seeing problems as interesting and acceptable because they're a challenge. I'm going to do something about that. Deferring judgment, seeing an idea and not saying, oh no, that won't work, that's rubbish. The idea of this deferring judgment is going to say, you know what, jury's out, I want to see some information, some research on it, I want to see it in operation, and then I'll make a judgment of whether it's any good or not. That's an amazing skill to have. It's an amazing skill to have with people. You know, sometimes we see somebody and we immediately judge them. Deferring judgment says, well, I want to know a little bit more about them before I can sort of tell whether I want to work with them or not. And that perseverance, that drive to continue going, because entrepreneurship is not easy. Youth engagement. Youth engagement. How? How do we engage young people? In Futurepreneurs, our foundation principles are that people make the world go round. And the sort of things that we focus on is that young people have talents and skills, and that's where we start. That there's authentic hands-on experience because they want to have a go at things. So we start on these principles with every program. We facilitate the why. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Why do you want to change the world? Why do you want to do what you do? And then we mentor the how, the what, and the when with our authentic industry speakers and mentors. And there are lots of benefits that we've been able to hear from you guys as educators, parents, young people, and we've collated all of these. And it seems like that through these programs, it accelerates learning, develops a success mindset, and certainly a few other things there as well. So you get back students that are really engaged, that find out why learning is relevant for them, and they really engage with you at school as well. And we've evaluated every program that we've done, and I've just got 3 slides here just to show you the impact it has on those young people. These are all school-aged children, secondary school students. Their understanding in the high 90s. Does it affect their career pathway? 60% of them said they think about new career opportunities now as a result of a 1-day or 2-day program. That's just absolutely amazing. And the most important question of all, and you guys know young people just as much as I do, is that young people do not mince their words. If something's crap, what do they say? It's crap. If something's good, they'll say it's good. And this question here gives us a lot of information that their program is so good that they would recommend it to a friend. And statistically, in research, that is a really, really powerful question. And just recently, in March, we did a program with a school where we, for the first time, reached 100% satisfaction rate. Just an example of how amazing young people are. This year at Startup Weekend, an adult program, these young ladies took out first prize with their business. This young lad at 15 took out second prize and a crowd favourite in an adult competition with engineers and academics and professionals in there. Their ideas were so good that they took out those competitions. And we've got a lot of young entrepreneurs here in Adelaide that are doing amazing things. Kids Arthritis, Sarah is a CEO of her own not-for-profit at 22, and that came out of a program that she did around entrepreneurship. And look, there's a lot of entrepreneurial programs. Have a look at the handout. Check out what's available out there. Some of them are really suitable for your young people. Others are probably more adult environments, and there are certain criteria to meet. But we do have a lot here in Adelaide. And finally, why does industry get involved with us? Why do those entrepreneurs give of their time and want to help those young people and want to work with you guys as educators? I'm sure a few of you have seen the movie Pay It Forward, and this is a program where they can get involved in and they can pass on their skills. And it comes out of entrepreneurs constantly tell me, I wish I had this kind of program when I was young, when I was at school, because I would be in a different place now. I wouldn't have had to go through the challenges that I have. And just to leave you with this, that for the future, our young people need to become job makers, not just job seekers. And we all have an opportunity to participate and contribute to that, to shape and to give them the informed choice of perhaps considering this as a credible and realistic pathway. Thank you very much.
Just quickly, does anyone have any questions for Sasha? For me? Gosh, I didn't present. Yes, so everything that's been presented today is being filmed, as well as we'll be sharing the slideshow. So Sasha's been kind enough to share his presentation, and that will be on his profile page on the ACS website. So you'll be able to access that. Handouts, registration desk. Yeah, so as you're leaving, and Sasha, I'll get additional content off you and we can post that
Absolutely.
On your profile page. Also, the Startup Muster website, highly recommend visiting it. It's got some great insight. And I've posted the latest report on your profile page as well, so you can access that PDF.
Brilliant.
Question? I'll come over.
In terms of the programs for school, what sort of year level are you kind of aiming them at? Because I know business has become a big part of the Australian curriculum, and we've just had a big day with our year 7s. So what sort of year level are you kind of aiming at?
We recommend our program from about 13 years old, so the teenagers, the 13 to 18, and then we've got, it's a different process sort of for the 18 to 25-year-olds. We've had young people as young as, year 8 participate. Next week we're doing a program at Wilderness, a school with year 8s, year 10s and year 11s combined. At Australian Science and Math School last year, we did one of our biggest programs with 264 students in one day, and they were year 10s and year 11s. So it's suitable for that teenage sort of cohort because of the methodology we use. They've got to basically build a business by the end of the day. So it's pretty full on, yeah.
Sasha's got an inquiry form on his profile page as well, so if you are interested in some of his programs, do reach out to him and can connect that way.
And what I'll also send you is we've done those 2 evaluation reports for those 2 schools. Is I'll send them to Michaela. She can put them up there, and you can see the full evaluations for each school, exactly what the kids are saying and it also has their comments. Their comments are just amazing. When my wife was compiling it, she was like crying at every second comment in there because kids really, pour out exactly what they thought of the day and the difference it makes in their life as well.
Great. Any other questions before we move on? Well, I'd like to thank Sasha for coming out and presenting today. That was very informative. And I think, start of a really great partnership together with the Australian Cruise Service. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else we can do together.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. So I'll keep talking from here. So as I said, you've got one last workshop, and then my colleagues are going to come around and give a 5-minute warning. And during that time, they're going to come around and collect your name badges, and we're going to just do a quick little prize draw at the end of the day. So have fun.